I really like this book. How about you? So, chapter 5 is called The Creek. And in chapter 4, Derek was awakened by a thunderstorm and he found a box hidden in the house. You remember that? And inside the box was some very interesting, maybe suspicious, I don't know. We'll have to find out more. Coins and all of the newspaper clippings from when the collection was stolen from the museum. And he was going through things and he fell asleep. And that was the end of our chapter. So, chapter 5 is called The Creek. Why do you think it's called The Creek? I'm thinking that maybe the setting is going to be him back at the creek. Maybe he's going to go back and look for more coins or something like that. I don't know, but I'll start reading to you. Here we go. Chapter 5 is called The Creek. Derek pulled his hand over his face. The living room glowed in the early morning light. He sat up and looked around. It took him a minute to remember how he'd arrived there during the storm. Sunlight streamed through the window. The rain had stopped. He looked down and saw the old newspaper clipping lying on the floor. He folded it back up and placed it in the box. The excitement of his discovery was clouded by his short night of sleep. Derek wasn't sure what to do next, so he gathered the box and its contents and snuck back upstairs. He tried not to wake anyone with the creaks in the floors, which were easy to hear now in the quiet house. He wandered down the hall to his bedroom, where Sam lay comatose, which means knocked out, sound asleep. Derek leaned over Sam's sleeping face. He was so close that their eyes were just inches apart. He paused, motionless over the bed like a spider lurking above its prey, but Sam didn't wake up. Derek tickled Sam's arm gently through the sheets, but he still didn't move. Growing impatient, Derek decided to speed the process and poked his brother hard in the ribs with his finger. Sam's whole body jumped at the poke. His eyes opened wide, and he screamed at the face looking back at him. He moved to sit up, but conked into his brother's nose with his head. Ow! Cried Derek. Sam moved back and frowned. What are you doing? Derek pointed out the window. It stopped raining. Let's go outside before Mom and Dad wake up. Sam rubbed his head and turned over in his bed. What rain? I'm tired. There was a huge storm last night, said Derek. Not that you'd know, since you slept through it, as always. Really? Really, let's go. Get dressed. I want to get back to the creek. You won't believe what I found. Derek held the box out in front of Sam and explained how he discovered it in the night and what was inside. Sam's jaw dropped open when Derek handed him the Indian head scent. No way, Sam exclaimed. He held it up carefully. We have to show this to Dad. Not yet. I want to figure this mystery out on our own. If we find the stolen coins, we could be heroes. Derek pulled his desk chair over to the closet. He reached high above his head and slid the box onto the top shelf under an old sweatshirt. For safekeeping, he explained. If it's been hidden for all these years, a little while longer isn't going to hurt anything. Come on, let's go to the creek. All right, so here we go. They're going to the creek. The boys raced silently across the backyard and down the path to the creek. They were both too consumed with thoughts of Derek's discovery to talk, which means they were both really thinking about everything. The storm had left everything soaking wet, and their sneakers quickly became heavy in the wet grass. The morning air was still and quiet, except for the occasional cry of a red-tailed hawk that circled high above the trees. They could tell the creek was different even before they reached it. Sounds of rushing water called out through the forest. The storm had turned the lazy flow of water into a surging stream that moved through the twists and turns of the creek bed with a newfound force. The water had risen at least 2 feet higher and wider onto the soft banks of sand and dirt where the boys usually stood to throw stones. Piles of leaves and branches had been pushed over top of the normal walking trails. In fact, the large sticks they had used as bridges over muddy spots on the ground had been completely washed away and were now piled up with the other debris caught in the bends of the creek. So here's the creek, an illustration of the creek.
Derek helped Sam up onto one of the fallen log bridges. They placed one foot in front of another, careful not to slip on the wet mosses along the edges, until they maneuvered to a spot with a clear view above the water. Sam stared out and marveled at how different things looked. What happened? There was a lot of rain last night, answered Derek. I told you the storm was big, even though you didn't hear it. Yeah, you weren't kidding. The boys climbed across the log to the other side of the creek and farther into the woods. Sam agreed to show Derek where he'd found the coin, as long as they didn't go up near the boulder. It was tough seeing along the bottom of the creek. The water was high and fast moving from the storm. The stones looked blurry beneath the current, which was streaking white with jets in a hot tub. It seems like if there was one wheat penny in here, there might be others, said Derek as they walked up and down the creek bank, peering or looking into the water. Sorry. Why would there be old pennies in the creek at all? Don't you remember what Mr. Hadkin said about that museum robbery, Sam? He said that the man they tried to arrest used to live in our house, Richard Davis. You believe him? Sam shivered again, thinking about the old man. I think he's crazy. He spooks me out with all that talk of his brother falling into a hole and dying. I don't know about his brother, but the museum robbery was real. It was in the newspaper article in the box. Plus, the notebook had R. Davis written in the cover. The map of the passageways, and it had a real Indian head scent. It all points to one thing. What? What does it point to? Do I have to spell it out for you, Sam? The treasure. It's out here, somewhere by the boulder and that Virginia Mining Company sign. It has to be, and I'm going to find it. Sam stared through the trees. He didn't want to go anywhere near that boulder. How do you know it's up there? Maybe he stole them, but just threw them here in the creek. He wouldn't throw a valuable coin collection in the creek, Sam. That wouldn't make any sense. Would you throw money in a creek? I've thrown pennies in the fountain at the mall. Maybe the police were hot on his trail. Just forget it. Derek sighed in frustration. This is a stupid conversation and a waste of time. There's nothing here, and we'd never find anything with all this fast-moving water. Let's head home. Wait a minute, Derek. I just want to look more downstream from where I found the penny. Sam walked slowly along the edge of the creek bed slope, eyes fixed on the water. He came to a spot where the trees overhead parted and allowed some sunlight to reach into the water. Sam spied something glimmering in the light. He got down on his knees and bent lower to see what it was. Look, do you see that? Where? Right there, next to that square-shaped rock sticking out of the water. See those spots sparkling in the sunlight? Are those coins? Derek crouched next to him and stared at the water. I don't know. They're kind of small. It's hard to tell. Sam turned and picked up a long stick from the brush. Let me see if I can move one with this stick so we can tell if it's a coin. He leaned back over the bank, stretching his arm as far as he could towards the sparkle. The edge of the stick pushed into the wet dirt. It touched the edge of the shiny object. Look at that, yelled Sam. Something moved, and it was round. I'm telling you, they're coins, just like I found before. I have to get them. He inched farther over the creek bank. Hold my legs. This branch isn't long enough. I need to reach down there. This is getting a little dangerous. Derek sat behind him and held his brother's dangling feet. Be careful, Sam. You won't be able to reach them. It's too far down. Let's just go around to the other side. No, this is better, Sam called back, leaning even farther into the water. Yep, they're coins. I can see them. Sweet! There's lots of them. 1, 2, 3. And as Sam said 3, the stick he was pushing with snapped in two. He lost his balance and slid forward down the edge of the creek bank. Sam's sudden burst forward sent Derek falling backward and holding only an empty sneaker. Sam! Derek cried as his brother slid head first out of his view. He jumped up and ran to the edge of the creek. Sam's body was leaning on a rock in the middle of the creek. His head was above water, but it was turned the other way. The swift current streamed by, and Derek couldn't see his face to tell if he was okay. Sam! He called out again, but there was no answer. Derek began to panic as he searched for a way to reach Sam without falling too. He spotted a small sapling, which is a little tree, growing right up the side of the creek bank. It leaned out over the water in a curve like a backward letter C. He looked back down at the water. Sam still wasn't moving. Derek didn't think any longer. He wrapped his arms around the thin tree limb and jumped, his body dangling over the water. He counted to 3 and let go. Those 5 feet that he fell into the creek seemed like 20 as he splashed down into the water. He leapt to his feet in the waist-deep water and wiped his eyes. Then he ran, slipped, and paddled his way to where his brother lay on the rock. Derek reached out and pulled at Sam's wet shirt. He lifted him and slowly turned his head. Sam's eyes were closed and his face was splattered with mud. He didn't seem to be breathing. Help! Derek screamed. Somebody help us! He knew he was supposed to do CPR or mouth to mouth or something, but he wasn't exactly sure how it worked. His teachers had said they'd learn about it next year in health class, but he needed to know now. Derek leaned over and opened Sam's mouth with his fingers. He pushed his lips over his brother's mouth and started to blow in air. He felt Sam's face move. Then it smiled. Derek looked up and saw a mischievous glimmer in Sam's eyes. Got you, yelled Sam as he sat up in the water and laughed. Sam, are you crazy? I thought you were dead. You love me. You really love me. Sam giggled and splashed water at Derek with his hand. I'm gonna get you. Derek lunged forward and pushed his brother under the water. Sam bounced back up. The water actually feels pretty good. And look! He brought his hand out from under the water, revealing several coins. I grabbed them when I fell down the bank. I told you they were coins. Derek rolled his eyes. You're unbelievable. He waded up to the spot in the creek where the coins had been, pushing his brother down into the water again with a splash. When they reached dry land, the boys spread the coins out on a smooth spot in the dirt. There were 5 in all, another wheat penny, an unusual-looking nickel with a buffalo on the back from 1932, and 3 silver coins from the 1920s. They were the size of dimes, but had a lady's head on the front with wings coming out of the sides. They keep getting weirder and weirder, marveled Sam, holding up the one with wings on it. I wonder what these others are called. No Indian head sense, moaned Derek. He was disappointed. But the new coins were still pretty cool. It was even more fun than opening packs of baseball cards. These are pretty worn from being in the water, but I bet they're still worth something. We'll have to look online like Dad did before. He's going to be surprised. Derek shook his head. No, let's not tell him about all this yet. I want to figure out where the map leads. These are all just smaller clues. There's a bigger treasure out here. I can feel it. This wouldn't have been enough to steal from a museum. The treasure has got to be near that boulder, but I'm afraid Dad will say it's too dangerous. But it is too dangerous, argued Sam. There's a cliff. Those crazy kids. Oh, and a bear. Do you want to get attacked by a bear? I'm telling Dad. Derek grabbed Sam's arm and looked him in the eye. Don't tell Dad, he warned slowly. It's not dangerous. You saw those other kids playing down there. How bad could it be? Besides, it's a treasure, Sam. How often do kids our age get to hunt for a real-life treasure? Sam looked at the coins on the ground and thought about the treasure. Do you really think that this could be clues to a treasure? Definitely, Derek answered confidently. Why else would coins be in the creek? It has to be connected. Trust me. All right, said Sam slowly, still a little uncertain, but I'm coming with you. And that's it for that chapter. So I wonder, what do you think's going to happen? Do you have a prediction? These boys they're very adventurous. Do you guys like to play in the woods like this? I remember when I was a little girl, I used to love playing in the woods. My brother and I would always go down and we could stay down there for hours, just playing on the rocks and skipping and turning rocks over to try and catch crawfish or salamanders. It was fun. So we're going to have to wait and see. I wonder if they'll find more of the treasure. I don't know. We'll have to find out maybe in the next chapter.